basically, what I wanted to talk about in this rant is cultural differences between. I wouldn't really per se talk about differences. I wouldn't really say like whites and blacks. Not really the difference between whites and blacks so much, but the difference between Americans and other countries. Okay, so when I'm talking about gang violence, crime, gang culture, and literal machete fights that actually break out in a lot of other countries, in you know African amongst African people, uh, amongst South American people, it's a common thing. It sounds crazy because you think like, okay, two guys, and actually, I'll even say in the Philippines, this is a big thing too. This is like a huge thing, like knives and machetes and sticks. It's more like, okay, when you look at Americans, we usually, when we break out into a fight or a scuffle, we don't tend to use necessarily deadly force just off the rip. Okay, like we don't usually get into knife fights. We don't usually we don't. I mean, sometimes it happens. That's actually something you see that would happen more amongst like homeless people. I'll say personally, I have witnessed more homeless people either carrying multiple weapons, uh, predominantly blades, like small blades, um, carrying weapons, and actually getting into fights sometimes, or at least like threatening to get into altercations and fights with knives. That's not something you see amongst people who actually are not homeless. Okay, but in other countries though, it's a common thing. I'm talking about it because you know, uh, hold on one second. So if you look at this, right, if you really get a good look at this, you see how rusty this is, right? Now this is pretty dull. Okay, it's pretty dull because it has been gripped, right? It has been gripped so many times to the point to where it is now dull. It has been pinched, it has been glasped or clasped, okay, so many times to the point to where it's dull as hell, okay? So, the thing about this is what me and my friend would do, we would take these cheap Walmart machetes, right? We would basically practice our precision, practice our power in our strikes. We would literally chop down like baby trees. We did honestly, I feel bad. I don't think it was legal, but we did so much damage with some of those machetes. Like we chopped down so much crap. And basically when we were chopping these small trees down, we're chopping them down at the same time we're working on our precision. We're working on the technique of our strikes. We're working on the power of our strikes. Um, but at the same time, that is dulling that machete. So when we would actually fence with those, they're actually very, very dull. Okay, and not only is grabbing that blade is a life-saving technique, but it's very effective. So it's something that I've done multiple times. I wouldn't say I've perfected it, but I've gotten pretty good at doing that in particular. Um, I mean, I've gotten good at just using it in particular for fighting. Period. But the thing is, it's very dull. So me and him would feel very confident when we would actually fence with those. We felt very confident in our skills because you know, we used a lot of restraint. Plus, we know how dull that blade actually is. Okay, we know how dull they actually are. Okay, so I'm just saying that it's not a common threat, right? It's not a common threat to have to deal with someone with one of those. And I mean, not one that they purposely dulled. I mean, this shit is still sharp because they pretty much have not used it, which in a sense is kind of to your advantage because if you've been training with that thing and they haven't been training at all with it and they just carry it around for self defense because most likely they are homeless. I'm talking about my personal experience from being homeless. I mean, obviously, I'm in America. Um, I mean, I've always had a culture and mindset that wasn't very American, still to this day, but I do live in America. But I'm saying when you're homeless and you're in certain places, you will you will see you usually the fight isn't going to break out, but people will carry them, right? And other things. It's not just that they'll carry hatchets and all types of other shit. You know, I wouldn't be surprised if someone was carrying around a fucking jail style shank, which I've never seen, but I wouldn't be surprised if someone was carrying it around, as a weapon. But I'm going to say back to what I really want to rant about. Now, it's funny because in other countries, this shit is so common that literally you could go online and you can see these machete fights. And these machetes are not dulled. They're pretty much new. They're sharp. Um, and these people are fucking going for blood and going for straight death, I think, half the time. Now, sometimes when people misconstrue, when a person gets into a fight with an actual bladed weapon, it doesn't always mean that they're trying to literally kill that other person. It could be that they're really just trying to draw blood and trying to make a point. Maybe they're trying to strike the person in the face to make them have a scar. Maybe they are just really trying to get that person to back down. A lot of times I'll see in these fights, a guy will be fighting and someone will get struck in like the wrist, arm, fingers, or hand, and they'll stop. Like they'll flee. They'll actually give up and they say, okay, that's the end of it. I don't want to try to I don't want to try to basically beat this person because I'm so injured. I'm. It's like, and that happens in seconds. It's kind of like when you decide, okay, you weigh out your options. Do I want to potentially make this worse, and now I'm at a disadvantage, or do I want to just flee and live to fight another day, as they say? And that happens a lot, with these type of fights. And yes, often people are killed in these fights. They are killed in these fucking machete fights and these bladed weapons. They're killed. Okay. Um, Sometimes people are murdered and it wasn't even a fair fight. They're literally sometimes people will come up behind people and slit their throats, literally, and that's usually done with a small blade. Like something that someone can easily conceal, and that's usually how that's done. Okay, and often that is gang related. Often that's not because it had no motive, or that's not because it was just random. It's not random, just psychopath with a knife. It's done because there was a motive, okay? Or often someone will literally shank somebody in the neck. They'll be literally talking to someone on the sidewalk, and then someone will come up and shank them right in the neck. They weren't paying attention. They really had no way of expecting or anticipating that, and they got shanked right in the neck, and they're bleeding out the neck right then and there. And oftentimes that ends in death. So it's a serious thing, and for the purposes of explaining the self-defense aspect behind this shit, it pays to train. It does pay to train. That's really what this video is about. It's also talking about different cultures and different countries. It's one thing for people to carry knives and carry things for self-defense, but it's one other thing that you actually train with someone. It's one thing you training solo on certain things like aim, precision, accuracy, on a target that is not moving, but it's another thing when you're actually sparring, fencing, whether you have gear or not, if you're using a marker, if you're using a plastic or rubber knife or weapon, whatever you're using to simulate that, just your basic footwork, your defense techniques, things like that. if you're not training those things, well, what that's doing is you're kind of putting yourself at a huge disadvantage in more or less, like for instance, I'll give you an example. If someone has been training, right, and let's say you happen to get a slash, a small slash. If let's say if you even do stab that person, but it's not really a deep penetration. Let's say if it basically grazes them, right? Now that person that's actually been training, if they're so used to intercepting, and they're so used to misaligning and then striking and moving, their footwork's good, and you're just clumsy and you're wildly swinging. I'm telling you, a lot of people are gonna fucking eat you alive, and that could be your life. That could easily be your life. And if it's not your life, it could be a hospital trip, and you're gonna have some fucking scars and stitches. Okay, and it's not gonna be pretty. And I'm pretty sure most people, they're gonna make sure that it is not pretty. Okay, because okay, that's just the way it is. Okay, so what I'm saying is, don't be one of these motherfuckers that walks around here. And the thing is, I haven't trained in a while because um the person I used to train with, he doesn't want to do shit. So that shit hasn't happened in a while. But the thing is, I've trained enough years to where if I was to have to get into a fight right now, or if I was to have to even just train with someone, obviously I still know what the fuck I'm doing and my skills are still on point. Obviously, because there's been enough years that I've done this thing. Um, but I'm telling you, if you're one of these people, and I'm telling, take this seriously. If you're one of these people running around here thinking that just because someone told you how easy it is to stab somebody, and you have one of these little knives, or you have a sword, or whatever the fuck you carry for self-defense, whatever the fuck it is, I'm telling you, you should be training with that fucking weapon. Because if you're not training with it, then it's pretty much like you having a gun that you never go to the range and shoot with. You're basically, your skills are fucking weak as shit. Okay? And it's not really a good, it's just not a smart thing to do. It's not a smart thing to do. Because I'm telling you, I'll give you an example. It could even be someone who is not even trained in, let's say you don't train for when someone tries to grapple you when you have that knife. You don't train for when someone grabs your clothes and pretty much uses your momentum against you, and they're trying to hold on to that knife arm and disarm you, and at the same time they're biting you and trying to fucking batter you in the head and everything else and drag you to the ground to try to get that knife and stab your fucking dumbass. If you don't train for that shit, that's the thing. That's the type of stuff that I've trained for. So I train for that. Okay, so I can deal with that a little bit better. But if you're, especially if you're some woman, you're some fucking 120 pound, 130 pound fucking woman walking around with some fucking weapon that you never even train how to use it. You just keep it in case some shit. Most likely that shit's not gonna end well for you. And I could literally test you. And I've done this shit to people. I've told them, oh, so let me see what you can do with that shit, right? I've done this to friends before, right? And pretty much, shanked the shit out of them, disarmed the shit, locked them up, and it wouldn't have been pretty if I was actually serious. You get what I'm trying to say? It would not have been pretty if I actually was serious and I actually wanted to do harm to that person. And the point I was trying to make is that, like I said, just because you have some type of weapon and you do not train with it at all, or you don't even have half an understanding about anything else other than you think that you're going to just wildly slash at someone, you're going to try to grab someone's shirt, and you think you're going to try to shank somebody, or you just think that that's how combat is, and it's just that fucking easy. It is not like that, okay? I'm telling you, it is not. There are people who are in high levels of law enforcement and military who have to train these things. And if you get two guys who have to fight for that knife, sometimes it ends up even on the ground. They have to fight for that fucking knife, or fight for that gun, or someone's trying to stab a person, and they're trying to retain their weapon, and they're trying to draw their weapon successfully without getting fucking completely shanked. Okay? It is a training process. It is a learning process. Those are skills. It is not just something that is well, in case I have this or in case I have that. I'm telling you the truth, man. And even if you train, it doesn't guarantee you that you're going to be successful in every instance. So I'm going to keep this rant short. That's what this rant is about. And if you really don't understand, like, let's say, I mean, you're probably not, but let's say if you're someone who's like a business person, or you're some I don't know, you're just, I'm gonna keep it real. Like, let's say you're just more of a bougie motherfucker, and you're just uncultured, and this sounds crazy to you. I'm telling you, look up just the different culture in other non-American countries, and understand that there's a more of a weapon culture there. Okay, realize that the culture is different, and realize that if you're talking about, gang culture, it's not going to be what you think. It's not what you fucking think. People don't even think the way that you think. I'm telling you, they don't think the way you think. I don't think the way you think. Okay, I don't think the same way. So I already know what that is all about. But if you're just clueless, then you might want to do some research and you to get a better understanding of these type of things. Because I think even just some people as Americans, in general, they really, some of them don't have a single fucking clue. They really have no clue. Okay, they really don't. When I say they don't, they fucking don't, man. They really don't have any clue. I mean, now it's one thing if you were to know someone like me and I would just give you like a crash course, like I'm just gonna jump on you and show you a couple things, like literally jump on your ass, then to try to get you to understand things that could possibly happen. That's one thing, but a culture in itself is a whole nother thing, and that's something that takes, I think. I mean, now you could literally meet people that are from other cultures if you want, and learn that way. You can learn things that way and get an understanding of their mentality and why people behave the way they do, why they carry the things they do carry, and even why some of them train the way they train. You can get that understanding. But what I'm doing is I'm telling you something that you can take something with you from what I'm telling you. Okay, so this is your host Steve from the back. Like, comment, and sub. Hit the bell button. And have a nice day.